lot. So welcome to Motivation Magic. And this little 10 minutes is kind of about how can we think about what motivates our students in the first place, and then what kinds of how can we start to build positive habits within our classroom. So we're going to just first of all have a look at this quote: nothing is fun until you're good at it. So I'd just like you to have a little think about how much truth is in this statement. So consider being a teenager. Yeah, how just have a little think about that. Nothing is fun until you're good at it. I remember observing a boy who was learning to ski. So completely different context. I was working as a ski rep. But I have experience of being a ski instructor, so it was really painful for me to watch this boy who was terrible on the ski slopes. He was really useless at skiing. Day one, day two, he just spent the whole time falling over. And it was really hard for me because I wasn't insured to support him. I could only give him lots of pep talks. And that second day, he was so reluctant to go on the slopes, and it was part of my job was to make sure that the students and the schools had a really good experience. And so I thought I had immediately failed because this boy wasn't having a very good time, and I wanted him to go home and feel like he'd had a good time on his trip. But he wasn't having a good time because he was terrible at skiing. And nothing was going to make things better for him because he just wasn't very good at skiing. But he pushed on and he was encouraged by everybody. And by the end of the week, despite still being not particularly good at skiing, he was able to get to the bottom of the nursery slope. He was able to start making some turns. And by the end of the week, he was having the best time. He didn't get onto the blue runs. He didn't, he wasn't winning all the races, but he had made a little bit of progress, and it wasn't until he made that progress that he started to have fun. And I just think that's really interesting to think about, because actually, I think there is some truth in this. I think there's some truth in this statement. So what I want us to think about then is the absence of potential fun can deter our students from engaging. I'm not a teenager anymore. But I know that as soon as we start to kind of bring in the elements of fun into our lessons, we do start to engage some, students. And of course, we need to think that every single student is different. Some are going to be motivated by things and others won't be. But I want us to think about this intrinsic and extrinsic motivation and rewards and what gets students going. And then really, when it comes to in 6 minutes time, when I summarize things, it is all about the fact that we need to use extrinsic motivation in the short term to build on, to develop our students for that intrinsic motivation. So academic amotivation is not a lack of motivation. It's a strongly held inner negative belief about the academic endeavour at hand. It comprises of 4 distinct areas. The student does not see value in achieving the academic goal. The student does not believe that they have the ability to achieve the goal. And even with great effort, the student believes they cannot be good enough. And finally, the student finds the learning task boring. These beliefs are in turn linked to negative outcomes, low self-esteem, dropout, poor performance, and disruptive behaviour. Now, as adults, we can rationalise doing things and we can see more clearly the long-term rewards of doing something that perhaps we aren't particularly good at. But it's so difficult for teenagers to see that because they want the instant gratification. They want the instant reward. And we, as their educators, what we want to do is to build a love of learning in our students. We want them to continue loving their learning through the rest of their lives, being inquisitive and excited about education. And one way of doing this is building positive habits in our lessons. So I'm going to spend the next 4 minutes talking to you about how we can build habits within our classroom. So the first one is looking at habit loops. Now, habit loops has 5 key ingredients. The first key ingredient is the goal. Okay, so what do you want to achieve at the end? So we can think about this as our group of students, as a whole group of students. It might be we want them to learn this particular topic. That's what we want them to achieve. You can even break this down if with mentoring and things like that. With individual students, you can use the habit loop, but I'm going to talk in regards to a whole class. So the goal, what do we want them to achieve? We've got the cue then, and there are different types of cues, but the cue is what's going to get us thinking about performing the action. We've then got the craving, what's going to get us wanting to actually perform the action. We know that we have to do it, but what's going to get us to do it? Then we've got the response, which is completing the action, and then we've got the reward. There needs to be some sort of reward. And for us in our classrooms, we need to have an extrinsic reward, something immediately that they can feel they can feel this good stuff immediately, and whether that is a merit or a stamp or a sweet or simply the praise, but they need to have some sort of reward, immediate reward. As I keep saying, we've got to have those extrinsic rewards, immediate extrinsic rewards, because it will lead to the long-term intrinsic reward. So what will this look like in the classroom then? So we've got our cues, first of all. We know what our goal is. We now need to think about our cue. Now, there are lots of different types of cues, but the cues I want to think about today are time and location. Now, you can build into your lessons specific times where you build in a new habit for a class. For example, at the start of every lesson, the students will spend 3 minutes working through a vocal warm-up. I'm a drama teacher, so I'm going to give you some drama examples. But it might be, halfway through the lesson, every single lesson with this particular class, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do this particular task. So the cue would be the time. Another cue might be location. I always think about this because I know people do this and I do this. Have you ever just walked into the kitchen and then just opened the fridge and then just stared into the fridge for ages and you thought, why am I in the fridge? And it's because, yes, we're nodding, it's because you've got this location habit of when you go into the kitchen, you usually go into the kitchen because you're going to the fridge to get something. And so this becomes a bit of a habit for us, it's a subconscious habit. And now with our students, it's coming into our classrooms. So you might set a trigger for them that when they come into the classroom, this is the thing that they need to do first of all. So consider your routines. What do you do when the students come into your classrooms? Do you have a particular routine that you already do with them? Is that something that can be amended so that you're immediately triggering some sort of habit with them to get them learning in a different way? So my students, when they come into the classroom, they have to take out their equipment and sit down in a circle. That's what we do every single lesson. But the challenge is, how can we build in a new habit for our students that's going to support them even further? So, for example, I might say, okay, instead of that, every single week, what I want you to do as soon as you come into this classroom is I want you to immediately do a vocal warm-up. That's what I need you to do. So we might set that up as the cue is the location. As soon as you come into the drama studio, this is what you will do. So here's my breakdown for my Year 8 class. I'm going to build the new habit. The goal is I want them to improve their vocal skills. I want them to use their vocal skills more effectively when they're performing. And in turn, the intrinsic goal will be that they will be able to perform incredible practical pieces. They will have wonderful vocals when they're doing presentations in other subjects, etc., etc. That's our goal, long-term goal. The cue then is a time and a location trigger. So every time they come into my lesson, they will spend 3 minutes completing their vocal warm-ups. And I'm going to have on the board lots of different vocal warm-ups. And the response then is that they come in, they see it, they complete this warm-up. The reward then, my extrinsic motivation will be a reward scheme. And that each lesson, they can pick a different vocal warm-up. And if they do that, they get a stamp or they can sign off in their planners or something. For each one, maybe we create something jazzy that they can stick in their books and whatever. But they get one for completing every single vocal warm-up. And once they've completed all of the vocal warm-ups over a number of lessons, they might then get a certificate of achievement or something some sort of reward, extrinsic reward. Then in the long term, once we've done this every single lesson, because they're completing those vocal warm-ups every single week, they're really engaging with the key terminology, they're engaging with it practically, they will have better vocals, whatever. So that is how we might build in this kind of habit loop. And in the long term, the students are going to love that learning a little bit more. I've already gone over by a minute, but I'm going to carry on. Last thing, a little way of thinking about how we can build new habits is habit stacking. And this is quite simply using an already established habit to tack on to a new habit either before or after. So how do we look at this in the classroom? We might think about this when we're doing essays or we're doing written work. Something that we want our students to do is check their work a little bit better. That might not be something they're particularly good at. But if I can start building a habit in whenever we're doing extended writing, if I can build in the habit of as soon as you finish this piece of work, you must then do this. You must get your crib sheet and check your marking, and maybe we've made something together. But it's simply tacking on a new habit onto an already established habit. So there are two ways of building habits into your classrooms, and that for me is what motivation magic is all about. It's about extrinsic rewards in the short term, leading to the intrinsic rewards in the long term. Building positive habits in the classroom will support and develop a love of learning, leading to motivation and engaged students. Thank you very much. Enjoy your next sessions.